Where do the Georgia Bulldogs sit with their top remaining targets at the tight end position? That's what we're talking about in today's video. Of course, Todd Hartley, one of the best recruiters across the country for any position group. He has done a terrific job in Athens. And before I go over where things sit right now and what their tight end class could look like, you have to remember they brought in two of the very best in the country in last year's cycle, right? Elias Williams, five-star out of Camden County, Ethan Barbour, a pass-catching machine out of Milton. So, he's got two in the chamber ready to go. But still, I expect the Dogs to sign an outstanding tight end class in this cycle. Yes, they missed on five-star Mark Bowman, who I thought could absolutely end up in this class. Instead, he got a massive NIL deal to stay home and commit to Southern Cal. So that was a tough pill to swallow for Todd Hartley. Brock Harris is another guy they really liked. He ended up staying close to home and committed to BYU. But they still have a really good commitment right now in Lincoln Keys. I'm going to talk about him. And I'm going to talk about Kaden Prothrow, a guy who is absolutely a five-star prospect in my eyes. I don't know where the other outlets have him right now. I know he's the number 2 tight end prospect in the country. I'm going to talk about him and other targets to give you an idea of where Georgia sits and who they could bring in this year's class, and a quick look at the 2027 class as well. But first, I want to talk about Lincoln Keys a little bit because this is a guy who committed to Georgia in mid-November, part of the 26 class when Georgia was still rounding out their 2025 class. So his commitment kind of went under the radar, but this kid can play. He's got plenty of size, 6'6", 220 pounds. He's out of Saline High School in Michigan. He's ranked as the number 13 tight end prospect in the country, number 261 overall. So, solid 4-star. He plays basketball. He's a really athletic kid who can make plays down the field. He runs really well for his size. And a guy who shows strong hands. He can make a tough catch in traffic, make a tough catch on the sideline. There's a lot to like about his game. So you look and say, okay, he's only the number 13 tight end prospect. He's only the number 261 overall player. The kid can play. He loves Georgia. He's excited to be a Dog. There has not been a ton of drama in his recruitment, so you have to love that if you're Todd Hartley and if you're just a Georgia fan in general. He was in town again for an official visit a couple weeks ago. Last season, as a junior, he caught 39 passes for 821 yards and 8 touchdowns. So when he has the ball, he's making plays. When the ball goes his way, good things happen. So he's averaging a bunch of yards per catch. I didn't write it down. I'm not a big numbers guy. Probably should have done the math earlier. But again, 39 catches for 821 yards. He is a big play guy and someone that I think Georgia fans should go back and watch the film of. I think you're going to be really excited. Of course, you can do that over on dawgpost.com. So they've got one on board. Early in this cycle, I thought there was a chance they could take 3. If Mark Bowman wanted to jump on board with Lincoln Keys, Kaden Prothrow wanted to jump on board, Brock Harris wanted to jump on board, I felt like it was hard for Todd Hartley to say no to those guys. So it looked like they were going to have a handful of guys who were trending Georgia's way. But Kaden Prothrow now is their top uncommitted target. And this guy's an absolute baller. I've been talking about him for a long time. He's a 3-time state champion at Bowden High School over in West Georgia. Size, ball skills. The guy runs like a deer, 6'6", 220. You can put him out on the perimeter. He can play some wide receiver if you want him to. He is a pass-catching machine, a big-time weapon in the pass game. So if he were to end up in Athens, dude's going to catch a lot of passes. He's the number 2 tight end prospect in the country, number 29 overall. And again, I think he's a 5-star prospect. Absolutely one of the best overall players, not only in Georgia, but across the country. You turn on the film. Again, you can watch it over on Dawg Post. I can't have it kind of scrolling above me here because we haven't gone to see him play in a Friday night setting. It's hard to go out there. So we don't have video ourselves, but you can watch his huddle highlights over on Dawg Post. Grab some popcorn while you're at it. This guy does everything well at the tight end spot and is such a mismatch to cover down the field. He can help you in the short passing game. He's dangerous after the catch. He's so tough to tackle, but he can stretch the field and challenge defensive backs vertically too. And again, there aren't many defensive backs who can handle him because of his size and his strength. 6'6", 220, a lot of muscle, but terrific ball skills. He can jump. He's got big-time hands. He's a mismatch in the red zone, one-on-one, jump ball situations. This guy is going to win those opportunities consistently. There aren't a lot of guys across the state who can match up with this guy. And again, he is a winner. He's a 3-time state champion. Dominates on the basketball court, I believe. I don't have his basketball numbers here, but he's just a terrific overall athlete. Again, 56 catches, 1,203 yards, and 22 touchdowns in just 15 games. So the guy makes plays week after week after week. So tough to stop. And Georgia's been on this guy for a long, long time. I think Georgia's in a good spot. I've always reported that, but they're still going to have to fight off some big-time programs. He was at Georgia for his big official visit May 30th. Then he was at Alabama. He was at Auburn after that, then Florida, and he's in Austin, Texas this weekend. He's probably coming home as you're watching this video, but this weekend he was at Texas. Have to keep a close eye out on the Longhorns. Every time prospects go out there, they love it. Texas immediately soars towards the top of their list, but at the end of the day, I still think it's going to be tough for Kaden Prothrow to look Todd Hartley in the eye, even after the 2 that they signed in the last cycle, who are really, really good. Those guys are difference makers. I think both are going to have very good careers at Georgia, but still, Kaden Prothrow, this is not a guy who's afraid of competition. And at the end of the day, I still think it's going to be tough for him to look Todd Hartley and Kirby Smart in the eyes and say, no, I'm going to leave the state and go play somewhere else. But Texas is a real threat. I think Auburn is a team that they've had him on campus several times. They're going to do everything they can to land him. They need a guy like him. I think he could probably play a little earlier at a place like Auburn, Florida, maybe even Alabama too. So a lot of schools in the mix, but he is a top priority for Todd Hartley and Kirby Smart, not only because they missed on Mark Bowman, but because next year's class isn't all that great. There's some good ones. I'm going to talk about them in a second, but Kaden Prothrow is very, very important to this staff. Braden Bogle is another guy to keep a close eye on. 6'3", 225 pounds. He plays up in Ohio. He was in Athens for an official visit June 6th. Before that, he was at LSU, and he was at Penn State after that official visit to Georgia. I think Notre Dame's in the mix, but he's the number 10 tight end prospect, number 159 overall. I was told he loved his visit to Georgia. How could you not? Really close relationship with Todd Hartley from what I've heard behind the scenes. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. I can see him in this class if they don't end up landing Kaden Prothrow. I'm not sure they're going to take both of them and have 3 total. Right now, I do think they're just going to take 2 in this class. Kaden Prothrow, that's the dog. That is the top priority. He is really, really good and one of the best tight ends you'll see, in the country. And I don't think there's a guy in 2027 who is as good as Kaden Prothrow is either. But I'll say this, Brock Williams, that is a guy to definitely keep a close eye on. He's the number 2 tight end prospect in the country for that 2027 class. He's out of Libertyville. I believe that's in Illinois. I thought I had that written down. I do not. I'll try to look that up as I talk. But this kid is a really big deal. He caught 35 passes for 608 yards, 7 touchdowns last year as a sophomore. He's been to Athens several times, and he's a guy that I think Georgia sits in a really good position for right now. Todd Hartley always has his eye out, in future classes, and he has established a really good relationship with Brock Williams. Yes, Libertyville in Illinois. It took me a minute to look that up. I apologize. 6'5", 210. Again, a big-time weapon in the pass game. 35 catches, 608 yards, and 7 touchdowns, as a sophomore. He's a guy to know. And then Grant Havlin is a guy that I've seen play a little bit at Milton High School. Didn't light up the stat sheet last year as a sophomore, but again, they had CJ Wiley, Ethan Barbour, several other guys. Ryan G is a guy that is committed to Auburn. And then Tristan Payne. I wanted to throw out Tristan Payne in there because wasn't a highly ranked guy, but he was a baller at Milton, and he caught a lot of passes. But Grant Havlin, as a junior this upcoming season for Milton, I expect to have a really, really big year. Great size, 6'4", 210. He's picked up major offers basically week after week after week. He's had a great spring, take a lot of visits this summer, and he's picked up big-time offers. So he is a guy who will probably end up being a top 10 tight end in the country for the 2027 class. Georgia's had their eye on him for years now. He does hold a Georgia offer, so he's an in-state guy, again, out of Milton, that I think Georgia sits in a pretty good position for. So at the end of the day, they brought in two of the best in the last cycle. They could land Kaden Prothrow. It won't be easy, but I can definitely see them landing him. That would be massive, because that guy is an absolute freak. And if they get him, that just, it kind of makes up for Mark Bowman, who is going to be a superstar, special. I think he'd probably do better at Georgia than a place like Southern Cal, who might waste him, but it is what it is. But Todd Hartley's going to get his guys. Georgia fans should not worry about the tight end position at all while he's there, but just a few guys to keep an eye on in the 26 and 27 class at the tight end spot. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you over on Dawg Post.